One moment. Okay. Councilmember Davis.
Present.
Councilmember Kerr.
Present.
Councilmember Cormack.
Here.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Present.
Councilmember Thisted. Present. Mayor Riley.
Present.
There are 6 members present.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the actual approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda or make a change? Councilmember Davis?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Can I have a second? Councilmember Thisted?
A second.
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Next item is communications to council. Would anyone online like to speak to council tonight? You can bring up any issue you would like.
I'm not sure if this is actually in. Yep. Sorry, it isn't. They should be able to hear us.
We're not online then?
We are online.
All right. All right. So since there are no comments, we'll go on to the next item, the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda or make changes? Pull anything off?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve, second. Councilmember Barnett.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All those, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's passed by a 6-to-1 vote. 6-0 vote. Next item is, that was too fast. But anyway, next item is consideration of ordinances and the second reading, public reading of ordinance 2024-0-10, an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Keystone, Colorado, prescribing the means of publication for enacting local legislation. I'll declare the public hearing open, and for that, I'll turn to the town manager.
Sorry. So I am going to pass this one right on to our town attorney.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Jennifer Madsen, Town Attorney. So the ordinance that's before you this evening, ordinance 2024-0-10, prescribes the means of publications for ordinances and other matters. The ordinance says that town will generally meet publication requirements by posting documents on the town website. The town can provide a courtesy notice of publication in the newspaper in addition to publication on the website. This means of publicizing ordinances after they're enacted, when they put them on the website, or providing notice of hearings. By doing it on the website, this is moving the town into the 21st century and is a way that local governments and states are moving it. They've been kind of slow to transition from the old way of doing things, of publicizing things in the newspaper, but I am seeing more and more communities publicize ordinances and notices in this manner, and state law is also moving in this direction, albeit a little bit slowly. So that's an overview. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? I have one, and it's just a clarification. In the next to last paragraph of page 2, we talk about in the event that access to the town's official website is rendered unavailable to the public for a period of time, that will make online posting wholly ineffective. The town shall publish the ordinance resolution or document at least once in a local newspaper. The way I read this would indicate that if our website were to go down, and would be down for potentially a week, we would be required to basically take out an ad in the Summit Daily and we could take out one ad for one day in the Summit Daily to meet the posting requirements. Is that right?
Well, so right now, related to ordinances that town adopts, you publish them after you adopt them, and then they become effective 30 days after the publication. So in that situation, for an ordinance, I mean, you might want to know how long is your town website going to be down, and you could wait. I mean, this doesn't require publication within a certain time frame.
So this is only for publication requirements after passage. It's not for the 7 days notice for the public hearing.
It is also for that as well.
That's
So
what I was more referring to.
yes, there may be circumstances where there's a more immediate desire to publish something and to get it out, meet your noticing requirements. And in that situation, then yes, you would publish it in the newspaper to meet that publication requirement rather than wait for the website to come back up.
So, but the normal requirement would have been posting for 5 consecutive days prior to the public hearing. In this particular case, you're only talking about it has to be published once in a local newspaper to meet that requirement. Is that true?
Right.
All right.
Which is what it is now, I mean, under state law.
Oh, for a public hearing?
Yes. And for other publications, it's only published once. There are some situations where ordinances, for example, ordinances adopted by reference need to be, notice of those hearings has to be published 2 times in advance of your public hearing.
All right. Any other questions? Can I have a motion? Oh, excuse me. I can't do that. In that case, I'll open up the public hearing for public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to make a comment on this? Hearing none, at this point I can close the public hearing and turn it over to the council for consideration. Councilmember Sullivan.
Yeah, I move to approve ordinance 2024-008.
Wait,
010.
I'm sorry.
there must be a typo.
Oh,
No, they're on order. It says 20. It says -10.
It's 2024-010.
Okay.
the later on,
But
it's
they're
got
out
the
of
wrong
order.
one.
Oh, I'm looking at the different one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's wrong. Point of order is a question. Can we? Oh, okay. I move to approve ordinance 2024-010, an ordinance of the town council of the town of Keystone, Colorado, prescribing the means of publication for enacting local legislation and other matter.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Kerr is seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Councilmember Davis.
Approved.
Councilmember Kerr. Approved. Councilmember Parmet.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Approve.
Councilmember Thisted. Approved. Mayor Riley.
Approve.
There are 6 votes to approve.
The next item we have on the agenda is Resolution 2024-54, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Keystone, Colorado, approving an intergovernmental agreement with Summit County for election services.
And I will pass this on to our town clerk, Madeline Seaton.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of Town Council. Since you have expressed a desire to put forward 2 questions to voters on the November 2024 ballot, if we want to participate in a coordinated election with Summit County, we need to approve an intergovernmental agreement. This intergovernmental agreement is pretty standard. They use the same template for all of the entities that they work with, and it is consistent with what they have done in the past. Most of the responsibilities still lie with the Summit County Clerk and Recorder's Office, but there are certain things that are outlined that we will have to do, and I highlighted those in the staff report, but I am happy to answer any additional questions.
Does anyone have any questions of the clerk? Councilmember Davis?
Town clerk, are you comfortable with this IGA?
Yes, there's nothing that I see as a major problem for me to commit to. I've put all of these timelines on our staff calendar so everyone has an idea of what they are, and it seems reasonable.
Councilmember Kerr?
Thank you. Is the estimated cost linked to the overall, or would it be a different cost if there were just one ballot question?
It is linked to the overall cost, and it's also in relation to the fact that one of our things is a Tabor question, and we're the only people asking a Tabor question, so they have to do additional noticing related to that and publications. So our expense would be a little bit higher than other people coordinating.
Okay, thanks. Good to know.
Councilmember Davis?
On the budget, I noticed there's a $50 postage. Can we even, I mean, that doesn't cover much. And my second question is election judges for 500. Did we spend that kind of money before?
I'll allow clerk to answer.
I am not familiar with what we did for the election judges and postage previously, but I'm sure that if we needed to do this as a standalone election, it would cost significantly more for us to coordinate.
Oh, I'm
to do
sure.
that.
I was just, having been through 3, I was just curious about some of the pricing.
And perhaps Councilmember Sullivan has more knowledge of this than I do, but I believe we didn't have the same requirements to pay the election judges in the incorporation elections. There's a requirement to pay the election judges.
Missed that.
I believe.
Well, I don't know that there's a requirement, but it frequently happens, and that was something that did come up with the election commission is paying the judges, and that you guys were able to find people without paying.
Yes, we asked for volunteers, or they went, any kind of payment.
But basically, go ahead.
And then I was gonna say, a comment on the postage. And yeah, if we would do our own postage, it'd be significantly more, but piggybacking on the county saves a lot of money.
In the case of election judges, there's one set of election judges for the entire election, all the towns in the county and Summit. So
Okay.
all we're doing is paying for a portion of this total cost of election judges.
Sounds good to me.
Any other comments or questions? Can I have a motion? No, no committee, it's a resolution. Councilmember Sullivan?
Make the numbers right. I move to approve resolution 2024-54. Resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Keystone, Colorado, approving an intergovernmental agreement with Summit County for election services.
Is there a second? Councilmember Davis?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote on Resolution 2024-54, resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Keystone, Colorado approving the intergovernmental agreement with Summit County for election services. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the motion carried by a 6-0 vote. The next item is Resolution 2024-55, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Keystone, Colorado, approving an intergovernmental agreement with Summit County, Colorado, and the towns of Breckenridge, Dillon, Frisco, Montezuma, Silverthorne, and Keystone, Colorado. Mr. Town Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I could have made that title much longer even. So it's finally here. This is the Housing Authority IGA, which will provide Keystone a seat on the Board of Directors in the Summit County Housing Authority and make us members subject to the disbursement of the 0.725 in sales and use taxes that are raised for affordable housing. That will bring us somewhere around 900,000 or more every year in housing funds from that tax money. This is fairly identical to the discussion we had at our last workshop meeting about the IGA. I want to bring your attention to one section of the resolution approving the IGA. In section 1, it says, it's asking the town council to authorize the mayor to execute the IGA in substantially the form that it is provided. The town manager is authorized to make any edits to the IGA based on the recommendations from the town attorney and attorneys representing the members of the SVHA. That's just because this is going to the county and all the other communities mentioned, all the other communities in Summit County. And if there are any slight verbiage tweaks, no material changes will be approved, but verbiage tweaks, things like that, it will, on advice of council, we'll be able to make those changes so that we're all adopting the same IGA. I know it's being voted on in the Breck Town Council tonight, and
It went before the Summit County Board of Commissioners on the consent agenda this morning.
yep. So we're getting there really close. This has been a long time coming. This approval will release the funds from March through whenever the last payment period existed. And we're still discussing things with the county about the February funds, and there are some other tax funds not involved with this that we're in discussion with. Are there any questions about this?
Questions, thoughts? I saw a perplexed look on one of our council members' faces.
No, the only thing I was questioning was the $90,000 capital fund that they had already paid for, everybody paid for, and then we're a new member, and they said, okay, well, let's have you pay as well. I assume that came up in discussions, negotiations. Yes, and that's, each of the jurisdictions paid $90,000. They didn't pay, like our annual operating costs are based upon the tax revenue generated in our town. In this case, all the jurisdictions paid $90,000 to move into the new building and for all the equipment in the new building. If for some reason the housing authority is liquidated, each jurisdiction would get an equal share of whatever the assets are of the SEHA. Our $90,000 is not needed to purchase the equipment. It would just go into the general fund, but it would be one of those assets then that's distributed equally to all of the jurisdictions.
Okay, my comment was really, they did all that before we actually joined. And so it's after the fact, and we're asked to do the 90K, but I understand that was part of the negotiations.
Well, it's so that we don't have to completely, otherwise, It's so that we have an equal share in the assets,
Okay.
in case they distribute the assets to the members.
Councilmember Davis.
It also makes us look very much like a team player.
Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Davis.
May I make a motion?
You sure?
I move to approve resolution 2024 dash, hang on, 55, resolution of the town council of the town of Keystone approving the IGA with Summit County, Colorado, and the towns of Breckenridge, Dillon, Frisco, Montezuma, Silverthorne, and Keystone. This has been a long journey.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Councilmember Permit.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Permit.
A lot of people put a lot of work into making this happen, so kudos to all of you because this is a super important thing for
Amen.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of Resolution 2024-55, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Keystone, Colorado, approving an intergovernmental agreement with Summit County, Colorado, and the towns of Breckenridge, Dillon, Frisco, Montezuma, Silverthorne, and Keystone, Colorado. Almost. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The motion passed by a vote of 6-0. The next item is Resolution 2024-56, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Keystone, Colorado, approving a request for proposals for an independent financial auditor. And I'll turn this over to the Town Manager.
Okay, this is seeking approval to put out an RFP for a municipal auditor's services to audit our 2024 fiscal year spending in 2025. We're doing this early so that we can get someone. There's a few changes to the request for proposal that I recommend. The first is in the first bullet point in the RFP, just eliminating everything after 2024 budget. And the other change would be submit your proposal via email to the town manager, listing my email and our mailing address. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Can I have any discussion? In that case, can I have a motion to approve the resolution subject to the two changes that the town manager recommended? Councilmember Thiston.
Motion to approve Resolution 2024-56, a resolution of Town Council of the Town. Do I read that whole thing? And there's mine, be funny. Town of Keystone, Colorado, approving a request for proposals for an independent financial auditor, noting the two revisions made by the town manager.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Councilmember Davis.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any debate or discussion you would like to have? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of Resolution 2024-56, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Keystone, Colorado, approving a request for proposals for an independent financial auditor. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The motion carried by a vote of 6-0. The next item on the agenda is for the town manager, and it's a discussion on the vacancy on the town council.
And I will pass this on to our town attorney after the minutes.
So this staff report here says that on July 29, 2024, Councilmember Keel submitted a notification of resignation for her position on town council. That was actually formally submitted on August 12th. She gave an informal notification on the 29th. Her resignation creates a vacancy on town council for a council member position. And so tonight, the town council needs to provide some direction as to how that vacancy should be filled. According to the town's charter, section 2.7, town council has the authority to decide on the process of how to fill the vacancy for the council member position. And there's really two options for filling the vacancy. One is an election, or the town council can fill the vacancy by appointment of a person to that vacant council seat. Under either the appointment process or special election process, the person selected would fill the position until the next regular election on April 26th. And that's because Councilmember Keel had a 2-year term. For both appointment or special election, the person must be qualified to be a council member, as those qualifications are defined in the charter. A person must be 18 years of age and be a primary resident, as that is defined in the Colorado statute, for at least 1 year preceding the election or appointment date. So the staff report outlined both of the process for either appointment or election. This is really not defined in your charter. The appointment process, that's generally how that's handled in other communities. Election, that would be defined by state statute on how you would go through that election process. Happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Thiston.
From what I could discern from this appointment process, it sounds like we would have to open it up. But I also heard somebody say prior that the town council can decide the appointment process. Is it possible to abbreviate the appointment process and choose someone based on the most recent prior election who received the next number of votes? Because we know they meet these qualifications. If we can validate that they still meet those qualifications and they're known to the public and the town council, with that.
Yeah, absolutely. You can definitely do that. You can most certainly appoint somebody from the January election that ran for town council without going through this appointment process. So that's something that you could choose to do.
Any other? Councilmember Corbett?
It sounds like we have an option with amounts of effort that are placed upon the council and the staff that range from, oh my gosh, please don't do that to us, to hit the easy button. I would suggest that normally I am reticent to see governing bodies make appointments without the input of the government. And asking for applicants and interviewing them is part of that process. However, we just did that. And I think we have an opportunity here to hit the easy button. And here's why I think that. Because my immediate thought is, you know, go with the will of the people. And I did look at the election results from our election, and positions 7 and 8. I did ask both of them, like, hey, are you interested? And position 7 said, yes, definitely. And 8 said, I'm interested, but I can't commit yet. But I would say this. We could have an interview. We could have an application process. We already did. We had debates. We had position statements put up. And we had an election, and in that election, John received more than 50% approval from the submitted ballots, with 150 out of 298 votes. I believe sixth place was 154, so just behind there. And so that's consent of the governed. And so I asked him, like, well, do you have any changes in your position, or like, what are you up to now? He said he's working as management for a hotel in Breckenridge. It was owned by Vail Resorts, now it's owned by some other group. He is a full-time Keystone resident living in the Gateway. It sounds like he wants to move somewhere out on Soda Ridge Road. His plans are to stay around Keystone for at least the next 5 years, if not the rest of his life. I'm not his friend. I don't hang out with him. We don't ride bikes, although I ride bikes with any of you. But I did ask him if he wanted to give me a statement to back up this proposal that I'm laying out to you, and he did. In short order. I'm actually surprised that he came up with something so quick, but he says, "Dear Town Council members, as a resident of Keystone, I am writing to express my continued deep interest in representing the citizens and my peers in Keystone on Town Council. My interest in serving the town has not changed. I have continued to seek methods to give back to our community and to make a positive impact on our future. Being on Town Council is so important to me as there are thousands of people who come to our community for the first time. My desire is to be part of the reason other people get to have this same experience. I still remember moving to this beautiful place and never wanted to leave. Please know my prior candidacy objectives remain unchanged, and my commitment to the town is stronger than ever. I am eager and willing to serve the town if the opportunity arises. Thank you, John Panger."
Other comments, thoughts? Councilmember Kerr.
I will comment on that, but first, to look at all options. Is it possible to do the special election as part of the November election? Or does it have to be a unique date and effort?
Well, I knew that somebody was going to ask this question, so it would make sense. I mean, that would be efficient. We're already thinking about joining with a coordinated election. It would, I think it's possible, but it would create a very abbreviated schedule for circulating nominating petitions. Nominating petitions would need to be submitted by, I think the deadline was Monday, August 26th. And so that a nominating petition would need to be put together, there'd need to be posting of the nominating petition, and then circulation of that would need to be extremely abbreviated. Typically, it's 20 days that somebody is allowed to circulate a nominating petition. So I think it can be done, but it would be extremely abbreviated, and there may be some questions about fairness and publication, allowing people to know that this is going on, and an opportunity for getting the word out. So.
May I continue?
Go ahead.
So I wanted to address that so that we have a full understanding. And it sounds like you were recommending a special election would be later than that November to be fair to everyone.
Yes, and there's special rules in the municipal election code related to when you can have your elections.
Okay.
So you can't have your election within a certain number of days after the general election in November. I didn't look at that, but I think it's about 30 days before or after that. So
that makes sense.
I mean, we're really looking at election. If it's a special election, it would be probably a December election.
Okay. As I said, I wanted to come back to Aaron's point. I'd
like to go on to
this was part of my position. Okay.
one point at a time. Councilmember Davis.
I think we may want to start by deciding how we're going to do this. I think it would be very difficult for us to hold an election, number one. Number two, I think this position needs to be filled as quickly as we can. And number three, Manny is right in the middle of SDRs, and we've just done 3 elections. I think I would like to avoid that this time. I might feel differently in the future. Just looking at what is on our town clerk's plate, I think it would be difficult for her to try and do everything we have asked her to do. And I think this is a time that the town council should choose to appoint, whether we go through, whether we accept the will of the people as Aaron has suggested, or we go through a interview process. I think we need to do this in as short a time as possible, because I for one feel the need for a 7th member of town council.
I'll come back to Councilmember Kerr.
All due respect to the easy button, which we all love. I think in all of our decisions, we need to balance efficiency with effectiveness. And I think in this particular case, because of the timing, January was only 7 months ago, or 8. I think the best way to respect the electorate's decision is to indeed go to the 7th person who was voted for by the electorate in January. I could concur with you, Aaron.
Councilmember Piston.
While generally I abhor trends that we've witnessed in local boards and elected officials to a point, I think that Councilmember Kermit made a very compelling argument. I think the people have spoken. I would not presume to make a decision on behalf of people who would be better suited for this. John Hagenow showed initiative and interest and commitment to the town of Keystone and received well over 50% of the votes. It was by a close margin that he wasn't elected, and I fully support just appointing John Hagenow.
Anyone else have any comments? Councilmember Davis?
One of the things in thinking about this and thinking about this council, because I think our town elected a fairly diverse town council in terms of geography, in terms of age, in terms of experience. And when I think of some of the things that Sarah brought, and I regret that she will no longer be at the table with us, to this town council is youth and someone who works in this county. She brings some other things that we're not going to get them all, but I think those two are very important, and I think John represents those two in particular.
Any other comments? I have a concern with the abbreviated process. I believe it's important for us to consider for a vacancy anyone in the community for the position. I recognize a very high I recognize John Hagenau's experience in working with us. He was a tremendous contributor to the transition steering group that we had. But from a public standpoint, I'm concerned that if we go to a direct appointment of an individual, we're bypassing the community's ability to have someone else be nominated and to be considered for the position. And so consequently, I personally would oppose that, but it's an issue for me of transparency and openness in the selection process and avoiding any potential initial accusations of cronyism. Councilmember Permit.
I absolutely respect everything you just said. Transparency is key, openness is key, avoiding appearance of impropriety is absolutely key. The only reason, and I would say most of the time, I would be arguing for an election over an appointment. I would absolutely always choose election over appointment. And the only reason that I don't think that this has any appearance of cronyism or of favoritism or of skipping an open process is because we're barely a half a year from an election where this person received greater than 50% of our electorate approving them to be on the council. And the question you would ask anyone else who might come up would be, why didn't you run? Why didn't you even declare your candidacy six months ago? I think that this would have a valid appearance because we're choosing someone who was already elected by the majority. They were just 4 votes shy of hitting the benchmark of those ahead of them.
All right. I don't believe we're in a position of making a decision whether we want to make a direct appointment. We want to hold an election, special election, or we want to have a open process for an appointment. Can I have a motion from someone on one of those options? Councilmember Thiston.
Motion to appoint without opening it up for application.
All right, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Councilmember Permit.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any debate or discussion? Councilmember Sullivan.
Yeah, I heard my 2 words in. While I have great respect for the individual we're talking about, I actually kind of think with the mayor that a process where we kind of open it up because things have changed. People have listened to STRs, people have listened to our budgets. I suspect that he'll come forward and he'll probably get some pretty good votes, but I'd like to keep it open for other people too. If we can keep the process minimized as represented by staff, that would be my view.
Councilmember Davis.
I would like an example of the timeline. Should we open, and I have already said I'm opposed to an election for a lot of reasons. So should we open this up to the suggested process? What kind of timeline?
So I put together a timeline in the staff report as to what I was thinking, but again, this timeline could be changed, revised. I didn't get it. I don't know if town staff really has any changes to the suggested timeline, but essentially it is that town staff would prepare an application for the vacancy. The town council could announce the council member vacancy position with an outline of the process and a link to the application that you could direct town staff to do that. Applications would need to be completed and submitted by a specified due date. I suggested September 5th. And then the submitted applications would be distributed to town council for review. And then town council could interview. Typically that's what happens, is you interview the applicants and select the person to fill the vacancy. I thought maybe that could happen at the September 10th meeting, and then at your following meeting, the person that's selected would take the oath of office at September 24th meeting.
A question for the staff on the first 2 options, the expedited appointment versus the what I'll call the full appointment process. Is the staff able to support either of those options, and will there be impacts for supporting one or the other?
Well, first of all, I have no problem with cronyism, it's how I live my life, but, sorry. This, it's really a decision for the council. Staff could make either of these work. Staff would be really pressed to conduct an election. If we do open it up for multiple applicants, I would recommend the timeline is laid out by our attorney.
One note I would like to make is that the timeline difference that we're talking about, we are talking about if we ran a full appointment process. We're talking about some staff time to put the process for applications out, make the announcement, and receive the applications. We're talking about some council time, probably as part of a work session on the 10th that would involve the interview process and selection of the candidate. I would guess that from that standpoint, we could actually appoint the person or the issue of the oath of office that night.
Yeah, definitely.
So potentially what we're talking about, the timeline difference between the two processes is 2 weeks. From the next meeting,
From the next meeting.
because I would be very uncomfortable taking an application that Aaron, his council member for Met has, and voting that person into council tonight.
And if I may, despite the fact that this person did qualify to run for the election in January, staff still has a duty to make sure they're still qualified.
So we're talking about 2 weeks difference in the process. Councilmember Parmet.
I am sympathetic particularly to an idea that we would proceed without full consensus, despite a likely majority. With respect to your point about timelines, and to that point that I just made about full involvement of the remaining council here, I will be in Scotland on the 10th, and it would be a middle of the night event if I were to attempt to participate remotely. So if we made our interviews and decisions on the 10th, I would not be able to participate.
You could call in remotely, as I've done from Qatar into here, and suffer the pains of a midnight call.
I very well could, but it would very well be unpleasant. I don't think my girlfriend would be very happy with me either. That is assuming we're somewhere where there is service at that time.
Understand. So, any other discussion? Can I have a motion of some type?
What is the motion?
Motion.
And a second.
Is the motion in a second? We've had discussion. Hearing none. And the motion is to conduct the abbreviated appointment process. All those in favor of the abbreviated appointment process, basically the direct appointment, please raise your hands. All those opposed, please raise your hands. It is a tie vote, the motion fails. Can I have, I believe that's correct, isn't it, Town Clerk? Can I have another motion? Councilmember Davis.
Motion to conduct the selection process via the interview, application interview.
Is there a second?
Point of information, when is it appropriate to make a comment about that motion?
After we have a second. Is there a second? Councilmember Sullivan.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Liston.
Given Councilmember Permet's point that he may not be able to attend, I'm opposed to the timeline associated with that, and I would hope that we could adjust that to make sure that we have all hands on deck for a vote and make it accommodating to have all hands on deck, because I think this is such a vital decision. We need to have every council member be able to cast a vote.
All right. Councilmember Davis.
I did not have the timeline to that motion, so I think that is flexible.
Yeah, I don't want to vote on it unless we clarify that.
All right. Well, we still have a motion on the floor. Is there any other discussion?
How do we clarify the timeline that is, are we clarifying that the timeline is not associated with that?
Right now, the timeline was not associated with that motion. If you would like to add a timeline to that motion, you can make an amendment.
I would presume to be able to amend it appropriately, but I would ask that the staff or council suggest an amended timeline to be able to accommodate that motion.
I have one question for Councilmember Carmet. When are you available?
I am out of town the 4th through the 21st.
Of September.
Yes.
Given that information, Mr. Town Manager, what would an amended timeline look like?
I see a few possible options. Could have a special meeting on September 3rd, that's a Tuesday, or we could just push the interviews and appointments off till the September 24th meeting. In that case, no harm in giving them another week to get applications in. Say September 12th to get applications in and September 24th to do everything.
Mayor,
Councilmember Davis.
I'm assuming we could still swear in that person that night, because we've been missing, we've had an open seat for a long time.
Yeah, we could do the interviews in the workshop, and first order of business could be the selection of a new council member.
Or we could conduct the interview, actually, instead of have a special meeting at the normal work session time and do that selection process, swear in the council member for the evening session.
Yep.
Other comments? Councilmember Kerr.
We've thrown a lot of dates around in the end here. I'm not sure what it is we're talking about. We're talking about, is the proposal for an appointment, but not an abbreviated? And if so, what dates are we discussing?
Well, that's what we're trying to do, is for a non-abbreviated process, and we're trying to see if there's a date that an amendment could be added to that motion, that's when the selection would be made.
And so the dates I recommended would be, I guess, September, let me look at my calendar again here quick. September 13th to get the applications in. That gives our clerk the next week to review qualifications. And then on the 24th, interview and appointment at a special meeting after the workshop prior to our regular meeting.
Or potentially before the workshop? Or a time to be determined either before or during the workshop, depending on needs that we have for a work session.
Yeah, we could do it before the workshop.
And have the person be able to be sworn in. So, given those dates, do you have an amendment you would like to make?
I'd like to offer an amendment going with the appointment process, with application, holding interviews, and a vote on September 24th, either before or after the work session time, and with the ability to vote into service on 24th of September. Need a second.
I need a second.
Second.
Councilmember Cormet has seconded it. Is there any discussion on the amendment only? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the amendment to the original motion, which would cause the abbreviated session would occur on, the interview process would occur on the 24th, either before, during, or after, associated with the work session. All those in favor of the amendment, only the amendment, then we'll come back and vote on the amended. All those in favor? The motion passed with a vote of 6-0. Now we turn back to the original motion as amended, which is, I'll summarize, that we will follow a normal appointment process, full appointment process, with the candidate interviews occurring on September 24th, either before, during, or during the time period allocated for the council work session. Councilmember Liston.
I'm sorry, I want to clarify, will there be more discussion following interviews than there was for our last, what was our last? Oh, for the Planning and Zoning Commission, will we be able to have a public conversation about what we're looking for as a town council demographically, qualifications wise, and whether or not those applicants actually fit the bill, or will it be interview and then a blind vote?
That'll be up to the council to determine how they want to handle that process. Councilmember Permit.
Building on that, how you would handle the process, is that something that we need to determine now or then?
Yeah.
Okay, and I'd like to,
Madam Attorney, I think.
Yeah, you don't have to determine it now.
wonderful, and I'd like to thank the council for the inclusionary timeline consideration, and praise Valerie for the most complex, I think this is the most complex parliamentary procedure that we've done, so we should all go team.
You still have a motion you have to
It's
vote.
It's complex,
But
whether we.
we're in discussion, in debate now. Councilmember Kerr.
So let me make sure I understand, Jennifer, Ms. Mattson, what you just said, we don't need to do it now. We have no normal appointment process. We have no qualifications other than the charter criteria. We've talked about demographics, but we've never made that our norm officially. At what point would we do that? I would rather not do that night or afterwards.
Well, you can do it after you, later tonight, you can talk about it, or you can talk about it at the next meeting, and determine what type of process you want to have.
But the only requirements for an applicant is those stated in the charter.
Right.
Anyone who meets.
I understand, I have no problem with that, but, we talked about, here are the criteria the council's looking for, and I don't know that we have made that. So,
And to be honest, I mean, I'm interested in the town manager's perspective, because I know he's gone through this in another community, but, I mean, the communities that I've worked with, the governing body didn't have criteria. It's just, it's who applies, and an interview process, and then people talk about why they like a particular candidate over another candidate.
so we don't need to do that.
No.
And then we can determine during that process later how much we want to have open discussion on candidates. And that's really, I think that's what issue that came up with the planning commission. That's why it's a council decision. Am I correct?
Yes.
Councilmember Kerr.
So just to be clear, although I like the idea of going back to the electorate results from January, I was swayed by the comments by my two colleagues on my left about transparency and what we owe to the electorate. Do you find that an appointment process that has a longer timeline and more public exposure and transparency would meet that expectation? I am asking you because I thought you were very well-spoken.
I believe that I believe a September 5th timeline, which is roughly probably 3 weeks by the time a notification goes out, is adequate. The fact that you'd be extending it a week would give additional time and probably more transparency. I'm not sure I see a need for that additional time, other than the issue of council member Brennan not being present.
Yeah, and when I recommended that time, it was simply because we had the time with Councilmember Parnett.
So, Councilmember Sullivan.
Sure, well, my argument was that I didn't think we've matured a little bit in 6-7 months. We've opened, I think, the eyes to a lot of people. We've all communicated HOAs to various groups. And I think I think we'd be doing a little bit of disservice if we didn't open it up a little bit. While I certainly don't think negatively at all about John, the candidate that was mentioned, I think he's an excellent candidate. But the thought of just let's listen to the folks.
Okay, and can I confirm that what we were talking about, if we were to do a special election, we wouldn't be talking about putting a new council member into place until January? And there would be what kind of cost in times of time and money? Yeah.
This is not part of the motion.
Right.
Do you want, I mean, it's not germane to the motion. Well, it is, there's an option.
I'm glad that we proceeded in this way because I wasn't super comfortable with super abbreviated unless we had unanimity amongst us. Because we did not, I'm glad that we're going to have the vote that we're about to have right now, which I intend to support.
Are there any other comments regarding the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of following an appointment process, I'm trying to think of the adjective I want to use, of an appointment process with the interviews to occur on September 24th, either before, during, or after the work session timeline that we normally have at that meeting. All those in favor, please raise your hands. All those opposed, the motion is passed with a vote of 6-0. Councilmember Kerr.
Ms. Madsen, should we have a process in policy for future appointments? Or is this good enough? Is this appropriate?
What type of process? I mean,
I
what do
don't
you?
know. We have no process tonight.
Yeah, I'm not aware of other communities having a process. I mean, you can have an informal process, which is typically what is used by other communities. There are other places where this happens pretty frequently, and they have an appointment application that's available, and a timeline that's typically followed, and they follow the same timeline and use that same application. But it's not spelled out in an ordinance, it's not spelled out in a resolution, it's just what is typically done.
Councilmember Pfister.
how will the announcement be made for the vacancy? Are we compelled to publish it in the newspaper, just send it to our questionable email list?
Yeah, you can put it on Facebook, you can put it on your website, and if you want to send out an email, you can definitely do that as well. There's no obligation to put it in the newspaper.
With council's concurrence, I'd like to direct the staff to also publish an ad in the Summit Daily.
Yeah.
Is there agreement on that?
Yes.
All right. And I think we'd leave it up to the staff to determine how many days you want that ad to run. I think it would be more than just 1 day. And that would be consistent, by the way, with what I've seen for other towns as they've gone through that selection process. An ad in the Summit Daily announcing the vacancy.
And I would anticipate that this will run in the news story about this meeting too.
You think
Yeah.
so?
Yeah, and if it does, it may be a well-placed call to the reporter.
I think this will do it. I think this will do it.
Is there any other discussion of, well, I'm not into that point yet. We'll have an opportunity to come back. On the next item is report of the town manager and staff. Mr. Town Manager.
Okay, I will try to keep this short because I actually went over much of my report already. We will have 2 new hires, hopefully in place by our next meeting. Regardless, I want to have them both here to introduce them, our new planner, our new public works director at the next meeting. At our last managers meeting, we discussed the nicotine IGA and the early childhood options IGA. The nicotine people are going to be coming and speaking to us in September at our first meeting in September. Went to the Summit County Transit Board meeting. That was actually great. As you've seen today, you might have seen, I didn't, I was told about it, but they finally are moving the bus stop at Razor Drive. The construction has started on that. The Summit stage this year is not doing the Swan Mountain Flyer. They're doing better. Okay, Summit Express routes, one from Frisco to Keystone, occasional routes up to A Basin, one from Breckenridge to Keystone, occasional routes up to A Basin. They'll stop at the school in Summit Cove or at Dillon in Summit Cove, and that's it. So we'll actually have kind of 2 Swan Mountain Flyers, one going to Frisco, one going to Breckenridge next year.
Is the terminus at River Run?
Yes. The RTA, they are taking a regional transit authority to election in 2026. And we'll discuss this at our next meeting, would like an elected to serve on the transit authority board, or advisory board. So leading up to that election, I think we have, I'll let you guys decide that. Let's see, I met with Dylan about law enforcement. We're actually talking to the sheriff, the mayor, and I in a couple weeks, nailing down how we're going to do law enforcement going forward. Last week, a council member, Thisted, and I went to the active shooter drill. I'm sure she'll want to talk about that just a little bit. It was impressive. I've started discussions with CDOT about major maintenance rehab to the intersection at the stoplight, West Keystone Road and Tennis Club.
It's club.
Tennis Club, I knew I had that wrong. Tennis Club Drive, thank you. Let's see, we're dealing with a land use violation at Timbers at the recommendation of our attorney. I'll leave it at that. But staff has it under control, working with Keystone to deal with that issue. There was a planning issue on a single family residence out in West Keystone. The county rescinded their planning approval and sent it to staff, and we are addressing that through our processes and procedures. See what else I have here. Oh, good discussions with Keystone Arapahoe Basin. Alan Hensroth will be coming September to talk to us all too. Keystone is hoping to have a permanent GM here within a month. We'll see how that works out. Our cast meeting is coming up next weekend. We have 3 council members going down to Durango for that. I will be spending my first anniversary in too many years with my wife at that, so I won't be joining you. We have our town hall next Tuesday at 6 p.m. for the ballot language. Our Friday concert series is still going on. This weekend is the Mountain Town Music Fest, featuring a band that I hired to play at my own house back in Chicago in the 80s. I'm excited about that. Freddie Jones. The comedy finale is coming up Saturday the 24th, and our next meeting is August 27th. Oh, one other thing, we are working, as I mentioned, with the other communities in Summit County to apply for EV charging station grants. Keystone Resort has bought into this, and it looks like if we are awarded the grant, we'll be putting a fast charge station in one of the Keystone parking lots likely. And that's all I have this
Yeah, on that last point, Tennis Townhomes has also offered up one of their spots located in the Lodge Park.
Where's the Razor Drive bus station going to?
The west side of the intersection.
Got it.
That was a recommendation of Commissioner Pogue's low-hanging fruit
Yeah.
of working group that was put together almost 4 years, 3 years ago now, in your first year of office. It was a recommendation that came out of that. It was scheduled to have been installed 2 years ago, and then they had funding for it last year, and it looked like that funding, once we voted to incorporate, that project disappeared. I thought it had just been pulled from, it's a $300,000 project. I thought that project had been pulled, and lo and behold, it's being installed as we speak now. And my hat is off to Summit County, the commissioners for following through with moving that bus stop, because it now gives a good line of sight. If you're at that traffic light looking east, you can now see traffic and you're not blocked by a bus.
Couldn't agree more.
So my hat is off to the county commissioners for following through with the commitment. So, all right, anything else?
That's it for me.
Now we're into report of the mayor and the council. Any council members like to speak of things that they've been involved in? Councilmember Sullivan.
Yes, Councilmember Thisted and I attended the first inaugural coffee with council, and we were pleasantly surprised. There were quite a dozen folks there, maybe. It was a lot of, I think Councilmember Thisted sent a note to everybody about some of the items. The next meeting happens to fall on a holiday, which is a Monday, Labor Day. And my initial thought was, that's a bad time, but after thinking about it, I think it's probably a good time because people would be available, other people that might not normally be available. So while it's a holiday, if we can have volunteers here from the staff, I would encourage us to retain that
keep the idea of the first Monday, and have that session. There was some confusion with the folks at the coffee shop, and that it had been communicated to them that we were gonna have the meeting, but it wasn't passed along. So we'll need to fix that this time. But with that, I would encourage that we do get volunteers for the next one. And I think we have one volunteer already.
Yeah, are you going to keep her up the volunteers, or?
Really not. I haven't been, but
Don't worry, just throw it out.
I can be. I can always make sure we have somebody.
We'll bring a sign-up sheet to the next meeting for the future ones.
Yeah, there was a question about whether we want to have a sign-up sheet. You had mentioned that.
But I think what John's referring to is a sign-up sheet for
Oh,
town council volunteers.
Yeah, sorry.
But I also think we should take an actual physical sheet to Steve that, at the gateway, that lists our planned meetings, even if it's obvious that we're doing it the whatever Monday of the month, that they will be able to hang it in their staff room, so there's no question, just to make it easier on them.
Could we also ask Steve to put, Steve who at times has notices on the windows and that sort of thing, events, to put a notice up that says first Monday of every month, we're having a coffee council? Consideration?
Yes, we want to do that. But I would like to have one volunteer for the next one. Do we have any other volunteers that would like to be? Not Valerie.
I'll do it.
Gretchen? Great. Thank you.
Is that all you had? May I add something about coffee with council? I just hope, we got a lot of meaningful feedback that we answered many of the questions, I think, pretty proficiently, but I would hope that the inquiries that we get from Coffee with Council institute some sort of process for following up and making sure that they're not just empty comments, that we seem like we're receiving them and acting, because there were things that I outlined in our recap that I didn't know the answer to and I thought were worthy of town attention, so I don't know what to do with that.
Does anyone have any suggestions? Councilmember Kerr?
I'm sorry, I don't have a suggestion, but I certainly would reiterate your recommendation. I looked at that list and I thought, oh, I want to ask her what she said. Just the questions about which roads we're taking over for this, that, and the other thing is, I'm still confused on, so that would be difficult to represent. I think the question you're proposing is, when we do come back to staff and council and get these the right answers, do we want a way to share that? Is that what you're getting at, or am I reading into it?
Yeah, no, I think we need a formal,
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if it warrants an agenda topic on the next town council or if it's case by case depending on what we find is relevant, but I just can't go into an empty well.
right. And I think the bottom line is, if you get that question from 2 of the 12 people who show up, there are others out there who are wondering, and we need to figure out a way to get to them. So,
Does staff have any recommendations on how we could do that?
Well, I'll take Councilmember Thisted's, I think the way to do it is just like Councilmember Thisted did and write up a summary email, and I'll get out this week. I'll take her email and answer those questions that were brought up to the extent we can and get it to you guys for your next meeting. And
but how do we get it to everyone else who might want to know that? Not a fan of frequently asked questions on websites, but it's
Yeah.
great.
yeah, we can.
Something along those lines?
We can put up deck. It's what it's going to have to be. Issues, we won't call it frequently asked questions.
Oh, that's.
Pressing issues.
Okay.
Okay, Councilmember Davis.
That was what I was going to suggest, that we post them on the website. So, and that would be something that could be told to those people, gee, we don't know the answer, we'll find the answer and we'll post it.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Just one other comment, just kind of
add for this. It's a great format because the people feel they're comfortable in a coffee shop and they were very willing to share thoughts. Probably broader than what we normally get in a regular council meeting because it's a little bit more formalized. So I think it's something that we should really continue.
It sounds like it was very, very productive. And for some of those answers, like the roads answers and that, staff probably needs to come back to council and make sure we're all on the same sheet of music on those questions.
And to be that honest, a lot of those answers are, this is a project that the council is looking at and we'll get to it at some
In
point.
fact, that is the right answer on roads.
Yeah.
Other than the roads the county is currently maintaining, Public Works Director will be working with road owners. And if they would, some of those road owners desire the town to take over maintenance, then the town could consider taking over maintenance. And there's a select number of those roads that would equalize out support across the community. So, as the town manager mentioned, some of those unfortunately don't have an answer yet. Exactly which ones particularly. All right, any other questions, comments? Did you have, trying to think, Councilmember Fisk, did you had another meeting you attended?
I did.
Yes.
So I think John alluded to the full-scale active shooter training exercise that we attended last, is that Wednesday? Time flies, yes, it was Wednesday. And I sent, I guess, my impression, did I send my impressions to everyone?
Yes.
I think I did. And I don't want to beat a dead horse other than to say that it was absolutely, it was phenomenal. It was beyond anything that I had ever attended before. The scale of the active shooter exercise was incredible. I couldn't believe there weren't more officials from the state and maybe other state levels to witness what they were able to pull off. And I guess my main question that came out of that to council and staff would be to examine how Keystone's policies and procedures would stand up in the face of such an event and support the policies and procedures that the county has outlined to address them, and whether or not we have other considerations that the town needs to examine. And I think I provided a little outline of that, but I think it's imperative that we are part of the solution rather than the problem.
Can I ask the town manager to provide an initial summary of that? I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is going to kind of in ways tie in with the evacuation plan that the county is dealing with. But there are other issues like, and we'll work closely with the Sheriff's Department, the other organizations. For instance, if this were a real event, the hospital would have been overloaded and they would have been sending people to our clinic too. And the town has a role in that to make sure that access to the clinic is open and available when it's needed at that time. So
Within the drill, patients were sent to that clinic.
okay, so just issues like that, making sure we have our phone tree to inform council members of when something is happening, and a script to basically say it's an ongoing situation. We'll let you know more when we know more.
It sounds like we have two sets of issues.
Yeah.
As far as incident command and that sort of thing, today it's the sheriff, so it's the same people conducting it today that conducted the shooter training. The town does not have a direct role in that. The sheriff is the one who, as the incident commander, is making those decisions on addressing that issue. We do have other issues. We have communications issues. As we saw, I think it was 2 weeks ago with the situation in Breckenridge in the potential armed suspect that fled. There are some communications issues. that the police department put out through the system that I assume in our case the sheriff today will be putting out. And if we went to Dillon in the future, the Dillon Police Department will be putting those notices out. But it is imperative the council be informed of what's going on, even though I don't think we have a decisionary role in that process. Am I correct?
You might. It depends on if resources need to be expended, issues like that, but primarily, people will be calling you.
Yeah.
And
We have to know what's going on.
you have to know what's going on.
All right. Anything else? I wish I was able to attend. Unfortunately, my family was leaving on an airplane the next morning.
How often do they do that? To my knowledge, nothing like that has ever been put on that scale. I mean, I know people have active shooter trainings and little parts and pieces, but this was a comprehensive,
Other towns have active shooter trainings of that scope.
where they have the Flight for
Absolutely.
Life helicopters
Yeah.
actually.
They have everyone involved.
Wow.
Disaster training.
Within this county, I can only recall 2 similarly sized trainings, but I think this was probably the largest of the ones that I can remember. I think there was a mock lift disaster, there was a mock bus rollover where we actually had like an old stage bus, we rolled on the side, we got actors in the bus, and the firefighters came in with jaws alive, cut off the top of the bus, and all sorts of interesting things like that. But to have as many agencies as were in this particular drill, I think is the largest.
For Summit County, this
Yeah.
is definitely the largest. I'm just making the point that it's not unusual in the state.
They insinuated it was, and they had actually invited state officials to attend. It was incredible. Hats off to our county for pulling that
Oh,
off.
absolutely. The sheriff did a wonderful job.
And they had people from Johnson County, Grand County, Eagle County, Parks and Wildlife, Garfield. It was,
Yeah.
For the small counties, this is probably
yeah,
a record setter. For the larger counties, the larger cities,
yeah.
this is a norm.
And they had to address unique challenges that Summit County poses with some of our geographical restrictions. I mean, it's one thing to have an active shooter training, but it's another thing to tailor it to the type of challenges that Summit will have seasonally and otherwise, whether it's weather, traffic, it was just,
A lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
All right. Any other reports from council members? Aaron, Councilmember.
First 2 things for town manager. One, if there's anything that I can offer with regards to planning around that, I'm happy to be a resource. We have overlapping, but not completely overlapping knowledge sets. Any update on dark skies?
Oh, can we get to that in other business?
You're absolutely right, Mr. Mayor. Meeting reports, 2 meetings I went to. One was the BOCC today, which I was only able to get the first part because we were actually doing a formal debrief of that MCI we just discussed. But apart from wanting to witness that MOU passing, there was an issue that I did bring forth. It does, even though it doesn't directly affect us, it indirectly affects us, and that is the proposed pay-as-you-go tax, or not tax, that's the incorrect word, fee structure for trash collection based on trash bin size. And the point, and I communicated this to you all, man, it's late. I communicated this to you all by email as well, but the point I wish to make to them was environmental stewardship is not just trying to reduce trash flow, it's also protecting our whole environment, and that includes our wild animals, bears in particular. I'm going to mimic my hero John here and say trash kills bears. Airproof trash cans, not supplied by the trash haulers. Those containers cost $350 or around there for whatever size you want. And for those who have one above the minimum size, they're actually now being unintentionally incentivized to get a non-bear proof, smaller trash can for free in order to pay a lower rate. Or they would have to pay another $350 to get a smaller sized bin in order to qualify for that lower rate, because they're charged on the bin size, not how full the bin actually is. So I wanted to make that point to them, and I would encourage you all to consider making similar points or letting other folks in our surrounding unincorporated areas, because the same bears that come and visit us here are the same ones that come and visit us, our friends over in the Cove, or in the unincorporated areas that immediately border our town. I think that's a really important issue to be aware of. The other meeting I went to was the county open space and trails meeting, which I really just intended to spectate, but they had a question about whether us becoming a town would change much, and I simply made the comment that we looked forward to partnering with them and collaborating with them when they asked me for input, because they noticed me in the room. And then I learned something that I had heard before and wasn't sure about, but they confirmed that all of the open space they control that are within our town boundaries, unless it's explicitly outright owned by them, is now what was deeded to the public as the county is now deeded to us as the town. So we have some more open space that I don't know that we are all fully aware of.
I would like to ask the town attorney to look at that. We've had some discussions before, but all of the open space in the town is town open space, even though it might be owned by Summit County or someone else. The question is that open space now, should that open space now be deeded to the town from the county?
They seem to imply that it would be.
That the open space would be deeded to the town? Okay, I mean, I'm happy to take a look at it, but if they will just agree to deed it, that's fine as well.
I can give an example, something that doesn't clearly appear on the county GIS system, would be the open space that sits up behind West Hills. Doesn't appear to be open space on there, but apparently is an open space that's now our open space.
Okay, it's within the town boundaries. The question is,
because the whole West Hills lot it is within the town boundary. So too is the portion of that lot that is.
and that's the question I'd like to ask the town attorney to investigate, because there's a number of properties within Keystone following that framework of that property, of the property, the county owns several parcels over in East Keystone that's designated as open space. We also have a child care center that's owned land for a child care center that is county land within the town. There's other property that exists as well. So the question is, maybe I should ask the town staff a question as well, and you deal with the right way to get the answer.
We'll get an inventory of all their property and send it to our attorney.
And then see, anything they want to give us, am I correct, Judge and sense of the council, that we would take?
That just blanket statement, anything they want to give us. I mean, there's some things you might not want,
But from the
yeah.
land that I'm aware of,
Yeah.
from the land I'm aware of in Keystone, that's listed as county commissioners. I think we would want anything to do with open space. That open space and child care center and one other parcel is the only parcels in the town, I believe, that are not, where they're county owned. All right, anything else? Let me go through a couple of quick things. I've had the Chateau de Mont HOA meeting on no major issues. Very interested in where we were headed from the town. A couple of questions about who's responsible for their roads in their area, and the answer is the county. They're in a little peninsula that's part of the town. We have an upcoming meeting this weekend with Flying Dutchman at 10:05. It's a virtual meeting, so it's relatively painless to attend. If you'd like to attend, send me an email and I'll get you a link for that. Tenderfoot Lodge is having their HOA meeting on the 14th. The town manager is planning on attending that meeting. Town manager is also planning on attending the Flying Dutchman meeting this weekend. But on September 14th is the Tenderfoot Lodge. Still looking for a volunteer to attend that. It'll be a show time of about 11:05 when they anticipated would be on the agenda. The agenda for Flying Dutchman, we would be up first. So that time's very solid time.
The 14th of
September. Tenderfoot Lodge. At the mayor-managers meeting, discussion of a fire ban for Summit County came up. It's within the sheriff's purview to determine when to have a fire ban. All of the elected mayors at the meeting, all the mayors at the meeting encouraged the county and the sheriff to initiate a fire ban, even though it may not have necessarily met the criteria at that time. Of course, now, and I think it did initiate a fire ban, and now it's been rescinded because of the weather.
I don't think it was publicized if he did. And they put a big sign up going, be fire-wise, but I haven't seen anything about a particular fire ban.
I just saw something that said that they've now backed down to stage 2.
What's your reluctance to institute a fire ban?
What?
Is it just based, what's the reluctance? Is it just based on set criteria that they don't want to
The
violate?
sheriff has a responsibility for it because he's responsible for wildfires.
But did he say what his reluctance to institute a?
They have a set of criteria.
So they just want to based on criteria and not more outside the lines?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what the electeds went back and said, we think you need color outside the lines.
Thank you.
The Blue River is adding a code enforcement function. We call it a code enforcement ambassador. That's just information. Yeah, I thought so. I thought that's information for the town manager. The session with Tom Fortune on the second was pretty much a meet and greet. And based on other discussions with other folks, again, anticipating a new general manager to be named probably sometime in the next 3 weeks. And that backs up what the town manager had. And that is all I had on my meetings. And with that, let's go to other matters, and I'll recognize Councilmember Carmet.
2 items. One, just following up on our previous discussion about the good neighbor. I did get a communique back from Anna De Batiste, who's their outreach media and czar manager for the state organization, Colorado Search and Rescue. And she'll be helping us get something to put in that map. And then question with the town manager and the updates on Dark Sky.
We are going to throw the dark sky application on our new planner here for the September application dates.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Any other business, other matters? With that, I think that completes the items that are on the agenda. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Councilmember Clement,
Motion to adjourn.
is there a second? Moved in second. And I'm sorry because it's dark and will impact your bike riding this evening. But moved in second. All those in favor, please raise your hands. We are adjourned.
Had a whole bunch of lights out there.
Yes. We could install.
Just right now.